Imagine the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean in the early 1940s, an endless stretch of blue that hid beneath its calm surface the tension, fear, and ambition of two great nations on a collision course. Japan had surged forward in those years with a sense of destiny. Its empire was expanding rapidly across Asia and the Pacific, its military victories swift and impressive. To the Japanese people, it felt as if nothing could stop them. To the pilots who flew for the empire, the mission seemed righteous, an expression of courage, honor, and devotion to their country. But history has a way of humbling even the most powerful illusions. At that point in the war, Japan's confidence rested on momentum. It had achieved shocking success at Pearl Harbor and across the Pacific Islands. Yet beneath that momentum was something fragile, an overestimation of what courage and conviction could achieve without the backing of sustained resources. Japan was fighting with extraordinary skill, but it was fighting on borrowed time. The nation's industrial capacity was dwarfed by that of the United States, though few in Japan truly understood the scale of that imbalance. Now imagine yourself as a young Japanese pilot flying reconnaissance thousands of feet above the sea. You've been trained to believe in the divine mission of your country. You've been told that spirit and discipline can overcome any obstacle, that willpower itself is a weapon. As you look down, you expect to see scattered ships, a manageable enemy presence. But instead, you see something that shakes you to your core, a convoy stretching as far as the eye can see. Dozens, perhaps hundreds of ships, carriers, destroyers, transports, all moving with precision and power. It's not just what you see, it's what it represents. This isn't a fleet. It's a floating city of steel, built by a nation whose factories never sleep. In that moment, the pilot experiences something profound, what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. His mind holds two conflicting truths, the belief in Japan's invincibility and the undeniable evidence of overwhelming American strength. It's a collision between ideology and reality. And when those two worlds collide, something fundamental shifts. Because when you see something that contradicts everything you've been taught, you either double down on the illusion or you begin to awaken. This was more than a military encounter. It was a philosophical one. It was the confrontation between belief and truth, between pride and perspective. The pilot, alone in the sky, began to understand something that few dared to speak aloud, that no amount of faith or fervor could outproduce a nation driven by sheer industrial capacity. Japan's strength was rooted in spirit, America's was grounded in scale, and in war, spirit alone is not enough. What's fascinating here, and deeply human, is how this moment mirrors something we all face in our own lives. We all have moments when our perceived strength collides with the reality of our limitations. We cling to confidence, to pride, to the story that's carried us so far. But when we finally see the truth, when we look down and realize the scale of what we're up against, it can either break us or transform us. That's the moment when humility becomes the birthplace of wisdom. For that Japanese pilot, seeing that American Convoy wasn't just about realizing Japan's impending defeat, it was about waking up to a larger truth, that strength without sustainability is an illusion, that passion without perspective leads to destruction. The sky that day became a mirror reflecting back the limits of human ambition. And that's what we need to remember. Whether in war, business, or our personal lives, momentum can feel like mastery. But it isn't success. Built on denial will eventually meet reality head. The question isn't whether that confrontation will happen, it's whether we'll have the courage to face it when it does. When the pilot looked down at that convoy, he wasn't just seeing ships, he was seeing the future. And in that moment, he understood. Victory built on illusion is already defeat. So let's stay with that moment. Up there in the sky, wind rushing past the cockpit, the hum of the engines steady and familiar. The pilot scans the horizon, expecting to spot a handful of ships, maybe a small escort group. But what he sees instead defies every expectation. The ocean below isn't empty, It's alive, teeming with motion, energy, and power. An American convoy stretches across the sea like a living organism, vast and coordinated, every vessel moving in rhythm, every formation perfectly aligned. It's not chaos, it's choreography. He stares down at this massive fleet, and what hits him first isn't fear. It's awe, the sheer number of ships, the speed of their movement, the precision of their patterns. It all communicates something far more profound than military might. It reveals an underlying truth about what drives power at scale, organization, discipline, and unity of purpose. This was not a random collection of ships. This was the manifestation of a nation working as one body: factories, engineers, dock workers, soldiers, all synchronized toward a common goal. And that realization cuts deep, because up until that moment, he'd been taught to believe that Japan's spiritual strength, its warrior code, was superior to anything material. But looking down, he sees the physical evidence of a different kind of strength. The strength that comes from systems, from structure, from collective effort. It's a moment that forces him to confront an uncomfortable question. What if devotion without infrastructure isn't enough? What if passion without the capacity to sustain it is just fuel waiting to burn out? Psychologically, this is a turning point. When we're confronted by something far greater than we've ever imagined, our first instinct is denial. It's a defense mechanism. We tell ourselves that what we're seeing is exaggerated, that there's some hidden weakness we can exploit, but the pilot can't unsee it. The convoy isn't a rumor, it's right there beneath him. And in that instant, denial gives way to awareness. Awareness that the world he thought he knew is much larger, much more complex, and far less forgiving than he ever realized. Think about that in your own life for a second. We all have moments like this, moments when reality challenges the stories we've been telling ourselves. Maybe it's in business when we realize a competitor is outpacing us not because they're lucky, but because they've built a stronger foundation. Maybe it's in our personal lives, when we see someone achieving what we desire and we recognize painfully that it's not about talent, it's about consistent, coordinated effort. That's what this pilot saw that day. Not just ships, but systems. Not just power, but purpose in motion, and the deeper truth. He wasn't just witnessing America's strength. He was witnessing what happens when a nation, or a person, harnesses alignment. When every element, from vision to execution, moves in the same direction. That's when power becomes unstoppable. You can't fight that with intensity alone. You can't outmatch it with courage alone. You need structure, you need scale, you need sustainability. There's also a profound humility in that realization, because what the pilot experienced wasn't just a military observation, it was an awakening to the nature of progress itself. Greatness isn't spontaneous, it's built, it's engineered, it's maintained. The United States didn't win through luck or divine favor. It won because it understood something timeless, that consistent, organized effort will always outlast bursts of passion. As he flew back toward his base, that image of the convoy stayed with him. It wasn't just a fleet, it was a mirror reflecting the limits of Japan's reach. And more than that, it was a mirror reflecting something within him, the recognition that belief must be backed by structure, that faith must be reinforced by function. When we recognize that truth in our own lives, everything changes. We stop chasing moments of glory and start building systems that sustain us. We stop believing that intensity alone will save us, and start creating the foundations that will carry us when intensity fades. Because the pilot's realization wasn't only about war, it was about life. He saw in that endless line of American ships the ultimate principle of endurance, that real power is not loud, not fleeting. It's disciplined, coordinated, and quietly unstoppable. And in that single moment of clarity, as the ocean stretched endlessly beneath him, he understood. Passion may ignite the fire, but only structure keeps it burning.